noch ein, zwei Minuten Zeit, aber ich möchte schon mal vorstellen, Alexander Nikolic. Alexander Nikolic kommt aus Serbien, ist Powershell-MVP, wir kennen uns schon viele Jahre, er ist außerdem der Mitgründer des Powershell-Magazins, wie man sieht, er ist der Werbeikone dafür. Und er wird jetzt uns etwas erzählen über Sicherheitsstrategien in der PowerShell, die mit PowerShell 5 möglich werden, unter dem Stichwort Just Enough Admin. Ist doch richtig, ne? Genau. JEA, Just Enough Admin. Und ja, da wünsche ich allen viel Spaß. Bitte schön.
Thank you. So, we'll come on to minimizing the risk in the modern PowerShell environments with JEA. Modern environments means that it's based on PowerShell 5. So this is why I put that modern thing there. And JEA is one of the features that sounds really cool in German. Yeah. Right? Much better than in English. So all this session is practically about you. About admins, about people with a high privilege account. Because the bad guys, external and internal ones, are after you. After admin accounts, after high privileged accounts. Right? So usually when we think about attacks, we think about external attacks, but internal ones are also very important. If you have in your environment a user who is a local admin on his desktop machine, that guy is really dangerous. You are not the owner of that machine, even if you are domain admin. Seriously. He's the owner of that machine. And you will jeopardize your position if you use that domain admin account to access his machine, for example, to help him. You will see why. And how. So what we want people to do their job without having admin privileges, if it's possible. It says here, if machine got cracked, but the real thing is when machine got cracked. Assume a breach. That's the new change of thinking. We think about security. If some company thinks that they are not hacked, it's just that they didn't still discover it. Right? We can see that all the time. Practically, it's in the news every single day. Small, big companies. So, what we really also want, we want people to do only what they really need to do. We want to reduce that, what they can do on machines. And we also want to log all those admin actions. That's a really important part. We missed that so far, but that will really soon change with PowerShell 5 and the things that are coming. So all of this is about reducing the risk. And we can do that incrementally. We can reduce the number of people that have admin rights, admin privileges in our environments. Then we can reduce the impact of those admin privileges. And also, we can reduce what can be done if you have admin privileges. As I said before, like log. We always need to think about that. Do we have solutions for a problem? That's the main topic of this session, really. We have. And solution is based on partial remoting security features. And those features are really not new. We have them since PowerShell 2. And Exchange team is using it all the time. Honestly, it's based not on VRM but on IIS, but still it's the same thing. When you go to Exchange Online, you are admin on Microsoft machine, right? Think about it. So they are so confident that you cannot do any harm to their own machines. You access their own Exchange service in a cloud, and you do your administrative work, right? Because they have control on the commands that you can use. They have control on parameters that are exposed for certain commands, or even the values that you can pass to those parameters. They control all of that. And you can do that in your own environment as well. So what's the most important feature that all of these things are based on? Session configuration. So what happens when you connect to a remote machine using Powershell remote? You connect to a session configuration or so-called remoting endpoint. The session configuration endpoint is characterized by a few things: a name, an echo, a startup script can be also used, and we, since Powershell 3, we have run as credentials on that endpoint. I will demo later how it looks like when we connect by default to a remote machine. If you use get command star PS session configuration star, you will get the list of all session configuration related commandlets in your PowerShell session. You will see that there are a few for getting information, registering, unregistering, also a few for getting files. But let's go to demo, it's much more interesting. So for demo, I'm using Azure VM mostly. Some of the things will happen on my local laptop machine. If you're not familiar with the Azure environment, the difference will be just how I connect to that machine. I will not use computer name. I will use connection URI. So maybe this is not a bad thing to see how that works as well, because usually when people work on their own environment in their own domain, they use just computer name, right? DNS name or Netz-Weise name, and it works. Here it's a little bit different. So the first command here is for launching a remote desktop connection. I have that as well because I want a few things to show you locally on that Azure VM. It's already started, so I will not rerun it. To properly connect, the Azure PowerShell team created get Azure WinRM URI commandlet that will give you information of it, and I will not show you what is there because I don't want to share that information with you, because I will give you URI in the board.
Azure team created that.
Azure PowerShell team created.
Azure PowerShell, sure.
Yes. Azure PowerShell team created. So blame them if something's wrong.
It's not my fault.
Yeah. Okay, because remoting that it's enabled on Azure VM machine is enabled over HTTPS, not HTTP. You need to keep that in mind. And it's signed using a self-signed certificate. So I have two ways to connect to that kind of machine. I can download and import that certificate and add it to my local certification store, or I can use new session option and skip a check for that self-signed certificate. So this is like a quick and dirty thing. If you want to do that properly, you will download, and there are, on the technical script, you have even a script provided so that you can work with that self-signed certificate properly. I need admin credentials and a connection. I already established that connection, so just look at it here. The important thing that I want to mention is this configuration name, Microsoft.PowerShell. That's the default one. So every time when you connect to a remote machine, you connect to that session by default. Why is it default, and how PowerShell knows that it's default? There is an automatic variable called PS session configuration name, and it contains this. There is a way for us to create our own custom session configurations, and if we want to change that for end user, so that the end user, every time when he connects to some machine, connects directly to the endpoint that we are targeting, we can change this here. So he will not try to connect to the Microsoft PowerShell session configuration. That configuration gives him access, not to every, but it gives access to everything, all commandlets that belong to PowerShell. Who can create, who can connect? Only members of certain groups, and we will talk about it just briefly. So you have a few PowerShell session configurations. Let me select just the name. Just to show you what's on this machine. I have three, the default one, and I have a CPU killer for one of my demos with the workloads, but it's just like a leftover from that session. So how can you, this is kind of a detour from the session, but it's kind of interesting because people don't use that very frequently. How can you get information about session configurations on the remote machines? you will expect that you can use get PS session configuration with computer name. Unfortunately, it's not there. If you check the syntax for it, it's not there. So we can use a evoke command to connect to a remote machine and then get the list. But I didn't do something properly. My session was broken. Okay. I will try to re-establish session. I hope the Azure VM machine is still working. No. It doesn't, for some reason. But session was recreated. So let's look at the session. Now it's open. Okay. Let's do this. So I have a number of sessions there. Another way to do it is that you can use a connect WSMan to connect to WinRM settings on that remote machine. For that, I created here a splatting. I use splatting, so I defined a lot of those parameters. I didn't want to write a really long command. And then I can connect to that WinRM settings on a remote machine and then browse it. And session configurations in WinRM terminology is called plugin. And not all WinRM plugins are session configurations for PowerShell remoting. You have some that are outside of that scope. WMI provider, for example, and one for event forwarding. You want to see that part? Okay, so let's define this. Connect to the remote machine. I will just remember path. If I go here, you will see that I'm now connected to a local host and to that Azure VM remote settings. So I can browse them. Now, here's the list of the WinRM plugins on Azure VM. You see here a few that I prepared for the demos. Event forwarding plugin is not a session configuration. And cell plugin and WMI provider are not as well. But they are there. Let's return here. Application. This is another way to get it. Almost forgotten WSMan command. Let's get WSMan instance. Can give you a list of all those remote session configurations as well. So that's interesting to know once when you start working with those things. When we look at the session configuration, the default one, and look at all the properties, there are a few things that are really interesting here. Permissions. So by default, the members of local administrators group, remote management users group, and NT authority interactive can access Microsoft PowerShell. For everybody else, you need to do some changes. Also, security descriptor SDDL, it's just something that's cryptic, but it says the same thing for permissions. We have a name. Run as password and run as users are not set for default one. But that's also an interesting property to look at. And we will use that a little bit later. As we've seen the default session configuration, we will talk now more about those custom constraint endpoints that we can create ourselves for our users that we want to allow to connect to remote machine, but just get a subset of capabilities. Not a full PowerShell, right? We don't want them to have a full access on our remote machines. We want them to have just a few commandments. We want to have control of what they can do. So what we can do with constraint endpoints, we can expose only a subset of commandlets and parameters. We can give them only our module. Create a module for that purpose, expose 5, 10 functions in that module, and give them access only to that module and nothing else. So when they connect to a remote machine, that's the only thing that they will see in a PowerShell session. We can also control who can connect. We can control and set the echo. And with run as capabilities, we can elevate their privileges without direct change of permissions. So think about it. What happens usually now in our environments? When someone needs to do some work on a remote machine, it asks usually for local admin privileges, just to restart some service. Because that service cannot be restarted if you don't have admin privileges. With run as credentials on a session configuration, you will transparently expose the restart service commanded, targeting only that specific service, and when he executes that command, the command will be executed in the context of a local admin, or a user who has privileges to do that. He will not be aware even that it has the privileges to do that. It will just work for him. Isn't that awesome? So you will completely reduce the number of local admins on your machines. Because that's something that the job needs to be done, right? If you don't use this technique, then usually what people do, they just assign local admin privileges to that guy and hope, right? Hope that he will do only the things that he is allowed to do, right? But you never know. You know? Remember Snowden? Oh yeah, absolutely. But that's one of the scenarios. So let's look a little bit about history, because I said JEA is a new thing, but it's not based on something that is completely new. It's based on something that is with us from Powershell 2. So in Powershell 2, we got constraint endpoints based on standard script. What was the problem with that? The problem was that it was a little bit more complicated than Microsoft Powershell team wanted it to be. You need to kind of code things there, to create that startup script, to put things there. Without Bruce Payette, it would be even hard for people that are really knowledgeable in PowerShell to do it. In PowerShell 3, when they realized that it's kind of complicated, they created a new session configuration file commandlet to give us easier way to do it. Unfortunately, that commandlet is good only for very simple solutions. Still, you need to work with the startup scripts if you really want something good. We also got run as credentials with PowerShell 3, and this new group is added as a group that can access that default endpoint, which is not very well connected to this, but I put it there just so that you know that you're not surprised when you compare PowerShell 2 and PowerShell 3, and later you realize that you have another group, and maybe you will be afraid that someone else created it, right? No, it's created by Microsoft. In PowerShell 4, we didn't get anything new in this area. But in PowerShell 5, now we have that experimental desired state configuration called JEA, or just enough administration. Let's talk about it old way, because I want you to see how we worked previously with it. What are all the things that are going behind the scenes? Because if you don't understand them, you will have a problem understanding JEA as well. So you need to understand really like what's happening. So I don't have access to, let's see if I can find here. Constraint endpoints. So let me check if I still have this thing open. It is. So I will show you here something interesting. I need to enter first. So I establish interactive connection to my Azure VM, and I will use now a feature from PowerShell 5, the capability of a PS edit function that exists in PowerShell ISE to connect to a remote file and bring it to ISE for editing. Isn't that awesome? It's super awesome. Crazy. Seriously, look at that. Just when I had that problem, I couldn't access at all my Azure VM from a GUI. Like, I successfully established a PowerShell remoting session to it, interacted PowerShell, and I brought back all my demo files using this feature. And for 15 minutes, that machine was still with a blue screen, saying like, we failed installing updates, we need to roll back. So I couldn't do anything, but PowerShell helped me to go behind the scenes, get all the files. So this is one of the startup scripts that I will use. I will not go into lots of details here, but you will just see that it's a little bit complex, yeah? Just like 50 lines of code. So what we need to do, we will use capability of commandlets to set their visibility. So we will hide all that we don't want. Then we will get a few commandlets in a sense of proxy commands that are required for good user experience in the different remoting scenarios, like implicit remoting, interactive remoting, or fan-out remoting. And then I will define a public content. Those public commandlets, or commands in this case, functions that I want exposed. So what I have here, I have a way to hide applications and scripts. So I will hide all the IP config, who am I, NSLOOKUP, all those things. I will hide scripts as well. And then I will define a required command. I will do that using initial states, session state, and the static method create restricted for remote server. So let me just show you here what are those 7 magnificent required functions, proxy functions. Get command, get format data, select object, get help, measure object, exit PS session, and now default. Not much, but those are required for a nice experience. For example, what will happen if we don't have exit PS session? We will enter PS session to that restricted environment, and you cannot get out in a clear way. Then we define all those functions, proxy functions for those 7. We do the binding, and then we go to define public content. In this section of the startup script, I'm loading my own module. It's visible because I put it in the program files, Windows PowerShell modules folder, the folder that is available to all users of that machine. So that's nice. Before it was a little bit difficult to do it because we didn't have a module path that covers that. And I set visibility for those that belong to my module to public. I want to expose only them plus those 7 required proxy functions. And I set language to a mode to no language. Really important part of the story. It means that all the language components will be here. I have a new SDDL file because I don't like to work with the GUIs for this case. I cannot automate stuff, so I have a new SDDL function that I created that will give me SDDL string, that cryptic string. So I will execute this and check if it's present, just not to be surprised. So it's now present in my remote session. I will define a script block that will register my new custom constraint session. I will define the name, a path to startup script. Security descriptor will be created using new SDDL function. So I want my non-admin user to have access to this constraint endpoint. But all commands that he will execute will be executed in the context of a local admin on that machine. Okay? And I don't want to restart WinRM service at this point. So, I should get a question. Do I want to perform this action? This is the SPDL string that it's created. And I will get a message that I need to restart WinRM service if I want this session configuration to be in effect. So now I will restart the service, ignore errors. I don't want them. I know what I'm doing. I will get errors, alright, because I don't. Right now I just broke my connection to that machine, right? I restarted WinRM session. I need to reestablish it. So now I have new constraint endpoint defined on my Azure VM, somewhere in a data center in Amsterdam. Let me check if I have this defined. This is my non-admin credential. So I will now create a session using non-admin user, targeting my new psconf.demo configuration. That's like Microsoft.PowerShell, but this is my constraint. Using the same thing for a session option and non-admin. So let me create this non-admin session and see if it works. I put this proposed thing just for you, for demos, so that you know that something happened. I will create the interactive session. And now if I execute get command, I should get those 7 required ones and few of mine. It should work. It's a little bit slow for some reason. Oh, we lost connection to the internet. But then it was recovered. This is a good thing that we got with PowerShell 3. I didn't plan to demo this, but it's nice. So it's robust for network problems up to 4 minutes. So you see, it worked. The prompt changed. So we are now on an Azure machine. If we run get command, I will see here 7 required ones and some of mine. So let's try 1 or 2. Let's check, for example, if we have some services that should be started but they are not. So I have here 2 to be exact. You get system info. So those are all get commands so that non-admin user can get some auditing of the state of a machine there, checking some services, even event logs, all those things. Probably some of those can be accessed even without admin privileges, but he doesn't care. Because all of things are executed as an admin. And that's completely transparent to him. He's not aware of that at all. He just runs this command and they work. We can also build a GUI on top of it and expose those things through a GUI. That's also possible. So let's go outside of this. And I want you really to show you this kind because I've seen a lot of examples when people say, let's create a constraint endpoint and set language mode to full language. You can see that a lot, even for people with a fly and type. Seriously. So let's create another one. Because I created already one called full demo. It's like restricted in a way, but with full length. Yeah, I know it's funny. So we get a session. Let's check the state of the session. It's a full demo configuration and you can see that. Interactive session works better network connectivity. Let's see what exposed. Nothing really except those 7 requirements. Because the point is on full language. So you think, okay, I only have those 7 functions. I cannot do anything, right? You try get date, for example. Some people say like they tried get date for the last 8 years and they're still stable. So sometimes PowerShell fails. But look at this. Look at this. We will use a call operator and put a get date in a module. And now get date works. Script log is the most dangerous part of PowerShell language. It's unnamed function. Everything that is inside it can be executed. So full language, with whatever you do, if it's full language, it's not restricted. Just forget about it. The thing that just a few guys know about this doesn't put your session configuration as a secure one. Okay? so I can execute whatever I want. SMB share. If you look at the session state, it says full language, as you can see. So that's the problem. Let's count the number of commands that I can use. It says 9, but if I'm inside of this module, I have more than 1,700 commandlets exposed. Not restricted, right? You can hardly pull it. So be very aware that if you want to restrict, no language. Okay? In some cases, constrained language can be, but with no language, you're really safe. Expose the things that you want and just keep it there. That's really, really important. Finally, now that you know all the pieces around and behind JEA, we can talk about JEA concepts and JEA components. So when we talk about JEA, they introduce some new terms. So what is a JEA toolkit? So what is a toolkit? It's kind of a set of commands that you can use when you connect to that JEA endpoint. Okay? As you think about the plumber who has a special set of tools, or auto mechanic that has a special kind of tools, you will create a special tools for help desk, you will create a special tools for commandlets and functions for a guy who's responsible for a SQL server, right? You get a picture. Then we have a JEA endpoint account. That's that managed local account with admin privileges. Remember, local account. When you create your own constrained account, you can run as domain user as well. But if you do that, and if that account falls into hands of bad guys, they can use that to go further. With JEA, because run as is defined for a local account, if that machine is already owned, then the bad guy will not get anything more than it's already had. Right? That limits you also in a way that you cannot use that endpoint to jump to another machine. But if you create your own constrained endpoints for jumping to another machines, you need to treat those machines as a domain controller. Seriously. In the same way. Because all those run as credential accounts will be exposed. So think about them as a domain controller. I'm not joking. Then we have a JEA endpoint. We talk about those endpoints now. We have the term JEA endpoint that will be created for authorized users providing those JEA toolkits. They will run as JEA endpoint account. We will get some additional logging with all that. We will get really complex passwords for a JEA account. The JEA account password will be resetted thanks to a scheduled task that will be also created. So there is a lot of things going there. And the whole deployment of things was a problem before. You can be a master of writing the startup scripts, but if you want to deploy them on a number of servers, you have a farm with the web servers, servers, and you want to have the same endpoint on every single one of them, you need to do that 10 times. Kind of a half manually, half automatically, right? That's not very fun, because the deployment was a problem. Design-state configuration is fixing that problem in making the deployment much easier. So now let's go to JEA part of the story. For that, I need to re-establish remote desktop connection. And I hope that that will work, that Azure didn't decide to do something strange again. And restart my machine. I also hope that the password is good. Okay, everything is fine. So, If you want to work with JEA, what you need experimental DSC resource. You know that story about experimental, that X in front of it? So what you need to do, really, is you need to install that, and you can install it from PowerShell Gallery. If you have PowerShell 5, as I have on this machine, and we can check that quickly using the only way to do it, proper way, PS version table, forget those get host kind of things that you find on it. PS version table is the only one. So I have a 5. With that, I have a PowerShell get module. Just because I have PowerShell get module, I can leverage the existence of PowerShell Gallery and easily install the XJEA DSC resource from PowerShell Gallery. What I need to do is I need to run, I can use find module just to check for the existence. So let's try to do that just to see if they release a new version. You know how agile they are. I checked this yesterday, maybe they changed it in the meantime. So I will need to update it. But I will not do that in the middle of that. So this goes a little bit slower because I need now to go to PowerShell Gallery over wire, right, and to get information from PowerShell Gallery about the version. And I don't know what are the other properties there they've exposed. Then I will install it. It's already installed on this machine. And when you get it, you get also a PowerPoint written by Jack Schnover that explains a few things much more deeply than I did now. Then you will get a white paper, and you will get some demos and a setup file for all that stuff. So I didn't expect this to run this long. I hope the network connection is still good. So what will happen? Yeah. Didn't expect it, but okay. I will. If you run a setup JEA file that you will get in examples subfolder, you will change configuration of your local configuration manager so that it's set to apply and autocorrect instead of apply and monitor, which is default value for LCM. Oh, this is now really long. Anyway, so once when I get my prompt, I will run the demo. The first demo, just to show you what's going on there and how it looks like. It's really simple DSC. Okay, it's too slow, or maybe it's not slow, maybe I lost connection. Oh, that's holding me back. The find one works better than the connection. Okay, when they try to reconnect to Azure VM, will that work? Okay. Yes. Okay. So, it says still that I have a connection. Let's try to relaunch RDP. Or I will need to go to Wi-Fi to put it in airplane mode. Oh, let me see. This still works. Just came to an interesting part of the story. It'll be really sad too. And I'm talking in type of passes. That usually doesn't work, right? Hopefully it worked second time. Okay. still waiting? Come on. Okay. I need to close that. Something's weird is there. Okay. Let's try to go here. Run new Powershell. Okay. So what I want to show you here that we have some demos in that example. So the demo one that I wanted to show you is this one. Okay? So what we have here, we create a configuration, we import that experimental JEA resource, and then we define first a toolkit. In the toolkit, using a CSV file or a comma-separated values here, you define what you want. So you define the name of a module, the names of parameter, you validate set and validate pattern. They change it. This is only for commandless parameter, validate set and validate pattern, but you can also have a module in that list. So this demo 1 endpoint will have a get process exposed, get service, stop process, but only stop process that can use a name parameter and stop calculator and a notepad. Nothing else. Default. You will see. And the restart service only if the services are starting with the A. Okay? That's the idea. And then you will get some that they think should be part of a story for a good user experience. Then you define the endpoint. Say, this is the name of the endpoint. A part of a process toolkit. This is the name that we pick for the toolkit. Can be whatever you want. Then you define the SSDL. Here it's everyone read. This is what I picked for this demo purposes. And it depends on that process here. Okay? Then if you run it, you create a mod file, and then I will use a feature of DSC that it's idempotent, so that means that I can apply a configuration multiple times without destroying anything. Okay? Because if it's already set as I wanted, nothing will be changed. So I can run this, being sure that nothing will break. We'll just check if everything is like that. Right? No biggie. So I can try now from my local machine to connect to that newly created endpoint to see how it looks like. So let's go back here to testing a JEA demo endpoint. I have this, I have this, I have this part, so only this session will be, configuration name is demo 1, EP of endpoint, 5 minutes. Okay. If everything works, I will get this session to demo 1 endpoint, and we can do a little bit of a testing to see how it works. For some reason, the connection to those custom ones are a little bit slower than to default ones, but we got it. So I can check with the get command what is exposed to me, and you can see that compared to my list, we have much more. They decided to give us a better experience for this thing. So you will find here get process, stop process, restart service, and also some of other ones that they added to a story. So you see all those starting with Microsoft there and save proxy, but those that start with the process, they are part of a toolkit. And now we will check how it works. So the first thing is here that it's interesting. See, connected user is a non-admin from that machine, but run as user is that special user created by JEA that has admin privileges on that machine. If I check the syntax of a stop process, I will see that only they have two parameter sets here. One is with a name. And look at this. They used this demo for a year almost, but they didn't probably try this. So always test your thing, even if it's demo. Test it. So I blocked ID parameter, and it's still exposed here. So if I knew ID of some important process, I can do harm to this machine. Right? So for example, I have get process exposed. So if I run get process, I realize that the ID is 512. And if I run this, 512, what will happen? If I type yes here, I will restart machine. Stopping that process, restarting machine. That would be a bad thing. Why did that happen? Let's establish a connection to it, because I want to show you what was the problem. Interactive session with full privileges. I will show you a part when they put all the stuff, and even for you, if you create stuff, they go to program files JEA toolkit. And process toolkit module contains definition for all those commands that belong to process toolkit. I should get it here. Here is a problem. They removed ID parameter, but they didn't change default parameter set. Okay? So I'm still prompted. What I need to do is I need to change it to name. I will exit this. And the good thing is here, I don't need to restart anything. When you have those external startup scripts, when you change something there, just when you reconnect, you create a new session, not reconnect. When you create a new session, it will pick a new changed startup script and work with that one. So now, I'm using that change script that I fixed. And what do you expect to happen here once when I have the session created? Before we got ID, right? Now we expect name. And that name will accept only calc and a notepad. Even if you try something else, you will get information that it's not part of validate set. It worked, right? Name. Okay? So if you try it now, this, you get information that you cannot do that, because that process is not part of a validated set that contains only count and notepad. Okay?
Alright, vielen Dank. Wir werden gleich Fragen natürlich noch entgegennehmen. Bevor wir die Fragen entgegennehmen, ich habe hier nochmal was aufgemalt, weil das ist natürlich eine sehr technische Geschichte mit JEA. Das ist ein bisschen klein, aber ich hoffe, man sieht es. Im Grunde genommen, was wir gerade sehr gut gesehen haben, ist ja, dass ich bei JEA eine Remoting-Verbindung absichere. Das ist nicht für lokal gedacht. Das ging jetzt zwar auch lokal, aber wir haben es jetzt remote gesehen. Ich bin hier, das ist meine PS-Session, das kann irgendwas sein, PowerShell-Konsole, ISE, egal, irgendein Ort, wo PowerShell Code leben kann. Und über das Remoting gehe ich über Port 5985, das wäre HTTP oder 586 HTTPS, auf die Gegenseite. Dort muss eben auch PowerShell verfügbar sein, so ist das bei Remote Outlook und bei eigenen Servern genauso. Hier sitzt der WinRM-Dienst und das Entscheidende daran ist halt zu sehen, immer wenn ich eine Remoting-Verbindung aufbaue, verbinde ich mich immer unweigerlich mit irgendeinem Endpunkt. Der Endpunkt ist die PS Session Configuration. Wenn ich keine angebe, ist es immer Microsoft.PowerShell. Wenn ich eine angebe, ist es eben die, die ich angebe. Und wie er richtig sagte, man hat eine Variable, PS Session Configuration, wo ich sagen kann, welche das bei Default sein soll. So ein Endpunkt hat im Grunde genommen hier bei JEA zwei Aufgaben. Der soll einerseits, drei Aufgaben. Einerseits das Ganze absichern, das haben wir über SDDL gesehen, wer darf das überhaupt? Standardmäßig lokale Admins und die Leute in der Gruppe. Ich kann das aber auch ändern. Weg. Hey, can you give me a wide screen, please?
You are just prepared.
But I can't see anything. No.
I didn't realize that, sorry.
Kein Problem. Ich suche eine weiße Stelle hier. Ja, okay, jetzt kannst du machen. Bleib hier weißen. Okay, so, das Ding hat nur 3 Aufgaben. Wer darf es? Ein Startup-Skript. Das Startup-Skript einer Remoting. Hier ist mal für Ich hatte gerade. Ein Startup-Skript dieser Remoting Configuration, das entspricht genau dem Profile, was man lokal hat. Das ist also ein Skript, was auch wie ein Auto-Exec-Button läuft. In diesem Startup-Skript passiert all das, was ich gerne mit dieser Session konfigurieren möchte. Und da hat er ja das Beispielskript gezeigt. Ich kann dieses Beispielskript nehmen, um alle möglichen Befehle, die ich nicht haben will, rauszuschmeißen aus meiner Umgebung. Das geht lokal genauso. Das gleiche Skript können Sie auch lokal laufen lassen. Dann sind Sie lokal auch Praktikant und können nur noch 3 Befehle in der PowerShell, in der ein PowerShell ausführt. Und das andere, was hier unten steht, ist, ich kann nicht nur das Startup-Skript laufen lassen, sondern diese Session unter einen User-Account stellen, wie ein Dienst oder wie ein Scheduled Task. Und das ist die Art, wie das Ganze funktioniert. Ich schränke mit dem Startup-Skript ein, welche Befehle ich habe, und ich sage anschließend noch, unter welchem Account sollen diese Befehle dann privilegiert von dem Hansel hier ausgeführt werden. Der muss dazu gar nichts groß sein, noch nicht mal lokaler Admin. Und der entscheidende Punkt bei dem Startup-Skript, das ist das, was man eben gerade sehr gut gesehen hat. Da wird es wichtig. Wenn Sie das verkehrt machen, machen Sie ein Scheunentor auf. Wenn es jemandem gelingt, durch Ihre Sperre durchzubrechen, dann ist der natürlich plötzlich der lokale Admin dort, wenn er vorher keiner war. Deswegen muss man das sehr, sehr genau engineeren quasi. Und eines der größten Herausforderungen ist eben, das hat er ebenfalls gezeigt, manche Befehle brauche ich einfach für den Benutzer User Experience. Ich kann nicht alle Befehle rausschmeißen, weil ich brauche zum Beispiel vielleicht für meine Tab Completion ein paar Befehle und ein Out Default brauche ich auch, sonst sehe ich in der Konsole nichts mehr. Aber eine Sache, die er ebenfalls gezeigt hat, war, wenn ich die Sprache von diesem Endpunkt nicht auf Restricted einstelle, dann bin ich ja immer noch in der Lage, Skriptblöcke auszuführen. Und da drin herrscht ein anderer Wind. Also innerhalb des Skriptblocks bin ich immer nicht restricted und kann immer alles ausführen. Das können Sie sich sehr gut verfügbar machen, indem Sie nämlich einfach sagen, ich schreibe mir hier in meinem Startup-Skript ein paar Funktionen, die genau das tun, was der Praktikant hier machen soll. Und dann gebe ich nur diese Funktionen frei. Alles andere verstecke ich. Und man macht sich dabei einfach zunutze, dass innerhalb Ihrer Funktion sind Sie völlig uneingeschränkt. Da können Sie machen, was Sie wollen. Also derjenige, der sieht nur Ihre Funktion, innen drin können die Funktionen alles machen, was Sie wollen. Und dadurch haben Sie überhaupt keine Probleme, die richtigen Befehle rauszuschmeißen, weil Sie schmeißen nicht gar keine raus. Innerhalb Ihrer Funktion sind Sie alle da. Ja, das ist also ein sehr schöner Weg. Also deswegen denke ich mal, werden sich jetzt vielleicht auch ein paar Fragen ergeben und anschließend auch Diskussionen, vielleicht heute Abend auch, zu diesen Restricted Endpoints, die man in gewisser Weise, wenn Sie unbedingt wollen, sogar auch lokal einsetzen könnte. Haben wir Fragen? Irgendwelche Fragen? Ja. Ich komme mal runter.
Is this function limited to the version of the PowerShell? I mean, if you have the remote session from the PowerShell version 3 and you go to the system on PowerShell version 5, for example.
So once when you have an endpoint, so to create the JEA endpoint, you need PowerShell 5 on that machine.
Only on the endpoint.
On that machine. But you can connect from a machine that has a PowerShell 3 to an endpoint on a machine with PowerShell 5.
Can you also use PowerShell 2? To connect to PowerShell 5?
I think that you can. There is no, because the underlying endpoint is the same as you will do probably in the days of PowerShell 2. The JEA just gives you a lot of those things to make it easier for you to create. And just what I wanted to show you that they created a JEA toolkit helper, a GUI, that will even do a DSC part for you. So this is not created by PowerShell team. It's created by a cat team. So what I did here is I've specified the name for toolkit. Then I pick my module as I did before, but now I did it from a GUI using the JEA capabilities. And I define here that I want to give access to that non-admin user. So I will update here, update the delegation here, and when you look at the, just a moment, I need to add to toolkit, this thing, update delegation, and when you look here, you get everything prepared for you. Okay? So you can use import, test, all that stuff. So you don't even need to write a DSC if you have this JEA Toolkit helper. It's available on a Technical Scripting Script Center, so you can download it. It's a free utility. So, but you need to, hopefully now you understand all the pieces of a puzzle, right? All the things that are really creating that endpoint at the end.
Alexander, thank you very much for this great talk.